Um, Virginia is a hot button on the immigration issue, and another issue that unquestionably matters, though it didn't rank high in the poll, and that's Iraq, and that's probably because much of the war effort comes out of Virginia in one form or another, whether it's the Pentagon or Newport News or countless bases. How will you run on Iraq when you tell me? Are you for or against the war? What do you?
I think the overwhelming majority of Americans are against the war. We've
Right,
got to
but
get out of
you?
Iraq.
Yeah.
We've got to get out of Iraq. But again,
Do you want to get out immediately?
The question becomes, let me answer. The question becomes, getting out without a plan is as bad as going in without a plan. So, and part of the challenge, I think, as a Democrat is to not spend all of our time simply rebashing past mistakes. I think the American people and the world realize we made mistakes going in, we made mistakes on executing once we got rid of Saddam Hussein, and now we got a mess. So how do we fix the mess? Give you a couple ideas. One, you got to understand that our troops have done what they have been asked. But the fact that they have done their job demonstrates that we cannot have a military-only solution here. There has to be a diplomatic component of this. And part of the challenge right now, from Armenian resolutions to challenges with Iran, is how do you have part of your efforts be engaged at a real meaningful diplomatic initiative to try to get other countries in the region to come to the table, number one. Number two, I believe you do have to start your troops withdrawal this year, this calendar year. For the most part, to put pressure on this failed Iraqi government that's not stepping up. Our men and women are there defending a government that is not doing the basic reconciliation efforts that they have been asked to do for the last 4 to 5 years. And until we start putting that pressure on, I'm not sure you're going to see that level of reconciliation or the effort of trying to force some of the powers that be in Iraq to get their act together. Third, I think it also begs beyond the question of Iraq and the timelines and so forth, and I think, again, seeing some of the Democratic candidates put the appropriate answer, it's great to say, let's start right away, but to box yourself into the exact timeline until you've got all the facts of how long it's going to take to finish the job would be, I think, irresponsible, and most of the Democratic candidates nationally are recognizing that.
But you want to see us out of there by when?
I want to see us out of there as soon as we can without leaving a greater haven for Al-Qaeda than is right now. And an absolute failed state. I think you start, though, this year with starting your troops withdrawal.
Do you anticipate pressure on Democratic candidates, though, to start putting a date on it?
I think you've got a number of candidates who've talked about a date, but I think you also are seeing people like Senator Obama and Senator Clinton who are saying, yes, we're going to start this process right now, but to lock into every troop out by X date until you have all the facts, may not be responsible. Clearly you're going to need redeployment, clearly you're going to need a diplomatic initiative, but I believe the Iraq circumstance also begs a larger question, and it's an area that I've spent perhaps it's all right with cell phones on around me. Some of you may have not heard the joke. I was the co-founder of Nextel.
Is that what this is about? Yeah.
When a cell phone goes off, you hear an annoying sound. I hear cha-ching, cha-ching. So please leave it on. Doesn't bother me at all. I'm unemployed at this point, so I'm needing them. Matter of fact, let's all call each other. But
according to the polls, not much longer.
But the other issue around Iraq, and it has to be part of this debate, is
you've really got to turn that off.
The whole question of our failed energy policy. Does it really make sense that we may be the only nation in modern history that is literally funding both sides of a war? By funding our troops, yet at the same time by sending $250 billion abroad to buy oil from countries almost uniformly that don't like us. Not just in the Middle East, but in Russia, Chavez, and Venezuela. I mean, this is an enormously failed
Let's take it back to
policy.
Virginia. Do you know how many Virginians are in active duty in Afghanistan or Iraq or have been?
We've had many, many thousands. The current number I don't have. I had that when I was governor. But we have the highest per capita military installations, highest per capita military personnel, and veterans of any state in the country.
And do you know how? I think that it's getting closer and closer every day to almost 4,000 deaths over there. Do you know? And then I think it's something like another almost 30,000 wounded. Do you know what percentage of that are Virginians? I mean, what I'm asking, what's the drain on the state of this war?
Well, the drain on the state is enormous. I mean, but it's not just in terms of Virginians who've been deployed. I mean, I remember when I was governor, and we had, a large percentage of our National Guard deployed. If we'd had another hurricane the way we did when we had Hurricane Isabel a few years back, our resources were going to be greatly stretched. I mean, and we were in a relatively good state. I mean, places like Idaho had 70% of their Guard deployed. And obviously, we saw in the catastrophe in the aftermath of Katrina, when there was Guard deployed in Iraq, and there wasn't an ability for the Louisiana Guard to be as fully responsive as it should have been. So, the price we're paying as a country, the price we're paying in men and women, the price we're paying in materials, the price we've paid in terms of decline of our stature in the world, it has clearly got to be a mission of the next president and of the next Congress to start fixing this.
Do you think the Democrats need to say they will go get Osama bin Laden and try him or kill him or whatever?
I think every American wants us to go get.
But do you think they need to reestablish that?
I
as
think
a goal?
we need to understand that if you're thinking about this in a military framework, and I don't think you can totally think about a military framework, this is a military battle, but it's also a battle for hearts and minds around the world, particularly around the Islamic world. And I don't think we've been nearly aggressive enough on that second part of that. But if you think about it as the president does oftentimes from a military standpoint, and you say, okay, where is the headquarters of Al-Qaeda? Where is the leadership of Al-Qaeda? It's not in Iraq. It's somewhere in
It's
Pakistan or in
exactly.
Afghanistan.
Right.
And in Afghanistan, where we had in Karzai a president who was trying to do national reconciliation, where you had different ethnic groups actually trying to hang together, the fact that we've kind of taken the eye off the ball on Afghanistan allowed the Taliban to regroup while we put all these resources, effort, energy into Iraq, again, has been a great mistake, and history will prove that.
Putin goes to Iran and basically gets photographed and saying, that he considers it a world power. Do you consider Iran a world power?
I think if you think about what the criteria used, the president used, looking at Iraq, state-sponsored terror, jihadist mindset, WMD, sounds to me like that's a description of Iran, not Iraq. And I would again argue that part of it begs back to, I really do think energy is inexorably tied to this issue. I mean, part of the relationship between Iran and Russia is based on similar energy policies. I mean, Putin's ability to reassert himself and reassert a more dominant Russia now is because, again, that country is sitting on billions and billions of dollars of our and Western Europe's revenues because they come from energy. I mean, let's face it, our current energy policy, I think, can be summed up as let's go borrow money from China to buy oil from folks who don't like us.
With,
With
the oil price going up,
up, and
up.
the challenge here is, and here's where we don't even have to even get to the climate change and global warming issue, but if we look at this simply from a security standpoint and from a job standpoint, I managed to eke out a living in telecom and IT. I'll make the prediction right here that for the next 20 years, the development of a clean energy and clean tech industry will have as much economic positive influence as telecom and IT has had for the last 20 years. But right now, we're nowhere on that. I'll give you a statistic. Federal government energy R&D, less than $2 billion a year spending. Yet we're spending $8 billion a month in Iraq. Regardless of what you feel about the war in Iraq, that's not a good business proposition. And if we could become the leaders in clean energy, what it would do in terms of reassertion of our moral leadership in the world, what it would do if we could figure out a way to capture the carbon that comes out of coal burning plants, the leverage it would give us with China, the ability to decrease some of the influence of some of our potential adversaries in Iran and elsewhere. It all is tied together, but we have not had leadership that's connected the dots on this issue.